Listen to Philosophy Talk every Tuesday at noon on KSJE 90.9 FM, Farmington. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, which is officially baby-friendly. This evidence-based initiative is designed to support mother-baby bonding and optimal infant feeding practices by upholding the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding. San Juan Regional Medical Center, officially baby-friendly, and serving the Four Corners since 1910. Find out more online at sanjuanregional.com.
Minutes past 8 o'clock. It's Monday morning, February 24th. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Micklin, and thanks for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM over the air in San Juan County, 103.3 FM over the air now in Durango, Colorado, and everywhere streaming from our website, KSJE.com. Special good morning also to our viewers who are watching this visual radio program. We are streaming live to the KSJE YouTube channel and Facebook page. We're glad you are with us, everyone. Welcome aboard. Coming up this morning, my conversation with C.A.S.A volunteers, a court-appointed special advocate program, part of Child Haven. Their semi-annual training is coming up in the next few weeks. We'll tell you how to get involved, that and more, coming up in the next few moments right here on KSJE. And then later on during the 8 o'clock hour this morning, we'll check in with Lewis Campbell from Synergy Computer Systems. We'll be talking technology today at 8:50 a.m. right here. The next hour, Mick Hess is taking over. He is playing some Tchaikovsky for us on Roving with the Arts, also sharing some arts news with us. You'll hear that coming up this morning at 9:06 on KSJE. And of course, a reminder, in addition to Facebook and YouTube, you can also follow KSJE on Twitter and check us out on Instagram as well. Weather forecast, a windy and sunny start to our week. The high today, 46 in Farmington with sunshine. We could see wind gusts this afternoon, though, up to 40 miles per hour. Windy overnight tonight again with a low of 24. Sunny and windy again on Tuesday, a bit cooler with a high of 40 degrees tomorrow and a low of 15. Then more sunshine and less wind for the rest of the week. 44 degrees for a high on Wednesday, 51 for a high on Thursday, mid-50s by Friday, and near 60 for the weekend. We always say that visual radio, of course, can take you places. Let's take you out to where it is raining this morning in Galveston, Texas. That is the Gulf of Mexico along the coast there at Galveston. Current temperature 66 degrees in Galveston. The forecast, scattered thunderstorms today with a high of 70 degrees and an overnight low of 59. Joining me in our visual radio studios to talk a little bit about the C.A.S.A program here in San Juan County, court-appointed special advocate. We have members of the C.A.S.A program who are joining me once again in one of the Child Haven umbrella programs. So welcome back to KSJE. Kevin Gorman, good morning. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Nice to have you here. Amy O'Neill, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having us, Scott.
Good to have you, well. And Becky Adams, welcome back to you.
Good to be here.
Good to have all of you here to talk a little bit about the C.A.S.A program and all the great work that it does in the community. And I guess we should start by saying congratulations, because C.A.S.A was awarded a pretty nice award recently, right, Amy O'Neill?
Yes, so in the spring, for the San Juan College Volunteer Recognition Luncheon, we were awarded the Volunteer Group of the Year Award, and we were very happy about that. And
congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, wonderful. And so, again, for folks who are joining us, C.A.S.A stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocate. And Amy, I always ask you to kind of give us the definition of what the C.A.S.A program does in our community.
Yes, so a C.A.S.A volunteer is a trained community volunteer who advocates for the best interest of a child in foster care and supports that child to get to a safe and permanent home.
Got it. And so, again, you've got a waiting list, or how are we looking at with C.A.S.A volunteers currently? What's the What's the status?
So we do have 45 active CASA volunteers, but unfortunately we still have 11 children who do not have a CASA volunteer advocate at this time. So we do have 100 children who have CASA volunteers. And those 11, we're hoping that we can recruit some new CASA volunteers to attend our training in April so that they can help advocate for these children that are in state custody.
Got it. And so again, as you mentioned, the training is coming up in April, and so now is the time to kind of get interested and get information about becoming a CASA volunteer, right, and getting signed up for that training.
Exactly. Give us a call at 325-5358, extension 6, and we will send you an information packet for that training that starts April 7th.
Okay, very good. And so, Becky Adams, let me turn to you a little bit about your job, working with the volunteers and signing up more CASA volunteers, correct?
Well, my job is to supervise the CASA volunteers.
Once they've gone through the training?
Yes, Amy supervises half of them, and I supervise the other half, and we help them with their being able to contact their child. We help them with being able to write their court reports, because that is one of their major duties, is to write a report to the judge as to how the child is doing and how the placement is going and what the best interest of the child is and if those interests are being served. And so we help them write those reports, and we monitor them and then get them sent in.
Got it. And so that's what you do
Yes.
to help them as well. And Kevin Gorman, let me turn to you and ask you a little bit about your job as the advocate coach, right?
Yeah, so my job is to go out and connect with the community and help with presentations, bring awareness to everybody that we are a volunteer program and that we are a program of Child Haven as well. So, of course, during spring and fall, you see me out there doing all of the footwork, and I also come here to the college and recruit quite a bit and attend a lot of the different events, and also just any clubs or community events that are happening, we try to get out there. So that's my job, importantly, is just to find all of those volunteers who are wanting to help a child.
Right. And what's the biggest question maybe that you get asked as you go out and meet people and they ask you about becoming a CASA volunteer? What's the biggest question that you find you're answering to them?
I get a few, but I think the last one is like, how can I fit this in my schedule? You know, I really want to help. What is, what do you need from me to be able to do this? You know, everybody has work and school and families, and they just think, oh gosh, on top of that, volunteers. So we always tell them our program is based upon your availability and our foster families and the children's schedule. So really we ask anywhere from 8 to 10 hours a month, and if you could fulfill that, we would love to have you. And of course, passing a background check and being 21 years or older.
Right, and going through that training, of course,
Yes.
which is coming up as well. But I would imagine that most people, when they hear that, then it doesn't sound maybe so daunting, and they're able to fit that into their busy lives, right?
Yeah. I think if you make the decision that you want to do it and be dedicated, and I mean, we're only asking once a month that you go into the foster family's home and just see how the child's doing in their settings, and of course, if there's anything else they may need or that we can help them with, and then of course, how they're doing in school. We want to make sure that we also are advocating for them if they need help with school.
Right, and a lot of these appointments are kind of set in advance. There's really not a lot of last-minute stuff that happens with the CASA volunteer. You can schedule these things out if you've got a work schedule or a life schedule that's hard to maybe fit things, last-minute things in, right?
Right. So everything is on a calendar, and that's mediation, family center meetings, or hearing meetings. The only thing that isn't calendar situated is, of course, when you go and make your own once-a-month visit. So everything else, like treatment team meetings as well, if a child is in treatment foster care, everything is set and within at least a month ahead of time.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And Amy O'Neill, again, you and I have been talking about CASA program for a long time, and so I know with these volunteers you have all ages and all ethnicities and men and women, and I mean everybody seems to be able to fit this into their lives no matter what they have going on, right?
Yes, we are very lucky to have all of that, plus different walks of life, from students to retired people to people who work full-time to stay-at-home moms. So we have quite a variety. And we always say that everybody has tools in their toolkit of experience from their own life. And then they learn from the experts in the field of child welfare during our training how their role as a CASA volunteer fits into the team to get that child to a safe and permanent home. And the CASA volunteer is the community voice and is able to visit that child or sibling group and everybody associated with that child.
Exactly. My guest this morning from the Child Haven CASA program, the semi-annual training is coming up here in the month of April. And again, the dates, it'll start, April 7th is the first date of the training this year, correct?
April 7th, so please give us a call at 325-5358, extension 6, to get an information packet and get started to become a CASA volunteer.
And this training, Amy O'Neill, take me through it a little bit. It's how many hours are put into these 6 days?
Yes, so 30 hours total, including court observation, which is according to the schedule of the CASA trainee. And there are 5 nights from 5:30 to 9 o'clock and 1 all-day Saturday, which is Saturday, April 11th.
Got it. And during this training, your potential CASA volunteers are meeting some of these folks that they'll be dealing with, perhaps, as a volunteer, and kind of putting names with faces, and you have these folks, a lot of cooperation from these folks in the criminal justice system?
Yes, we're very lucky to have from the judges who come to talk to us, and Judge Townsend, who started the CASA program, is now our chief judge. Judge Daly is the judge who sees the abuse and neglect cases, to Family Crisis Center, who talks to us about children who witness domestic violence, to the children, youth, and families social workers that tell us about why a family comes into state custody and why some children may remain at home, to the attorneys for the parents, who talk about their role in advocating for the parents in this as they walk through the system, the judicial system, to be reunified with their children.
And Becky Adams, let me ask you a little bit about making that commitment to be a CASA volunteer. I know you ask for a certain amount of hours every month, but then are you asking for maybe a year commitment from the volunteer? Is that kind of the idea?
Since we do have the 30-hour training, and then they're actually associated with the child, and we want some permanence in that child's life, some stability, so we do ask that they will commit a year to being a CASA volunteer. Some of the cases last beyond that. Obviously, we have some that end within a few months, but then we have those that go a couple of years. And so if they want to stay on that case, that is great. There again, that's some stability in the child's life, but we do ask them to commit a year.
And I would imagine, and all of you feel free to answer this question, but when maybe that year comes due and maybe the case is still ongoing, there's a lot of CASA volunteers that probably can't walk away from that child in that case. They want to see it through. Does that happen probably more often than not, I would think?
Yes. I have had very few of them say, okay, my year is up, I'm through. They get attached to that child somewhat in being able to advocate for them, and so they do want to see the case through to the end.
Right. And I know later this morning we're going to be talking to an actual CASA volunteer, a young man who has been signed up for just the last few months, and hear his story of what got him involved and how he feels about being a CASA volunteer. And so it's great to kind of hear from kind of the source of what we're talking about here and how fulfilling it is. And that's what you find. Is it not true, Amy O'Neill?
Exactly. And we do let the CASA volunteers, when they finish a case, we say, would you like a few months of take a break? And we're very lucky to have many, though, have come back after that break. Like a shout out to Judy Schlotterbeck, Rita Blazitis. They've taken a few months off and then come back and have served for over 10 years. So we're very lucky to have those people with the experience of already completing a case, and they take on a second and sometimes a third, then a fourth, as they continue on their road of being a CASA volunteer.
Right. And the requirements, again, you have to pass that background check and go through the training, of course. 21 years or older, and that's the only age limit necessarily, correct?
Correct. So you can go through the training the year before if you wanted to, as several do for service learning, and then that'll still count for your next year when you turn 21. We have one student we're hoping to capture for our next training who completed most of it last year.
Got you. And you mentioned service learning, and again, that is something here at San Juan College that's a big deal, and so this really is attractive to students who maybe want to get into this line of work or social work or things along that line, child welfare. Great experience, I would think, for anyone thinking about that profession.
Yes, and we do have those experts in the field of child welfare that train the C.A.S.A volunteers. So any student at San Juan College that has service learning hours to complete, if your teacher is interested in supporting you attending the C.A.S.A training, we'll have the detailed schedule ready soon. You can contact us and see if you may like to attend to learn about those different things we were talking about. We also have different sessions about trauma that the child experiences in the home and how people work with them to be resilient and continue on to be good members of the community. So you really do learn a lot. Our service learning students have always given us good feedback that they enjoyed learning at the C.A.S.A training. So contact us if you would like to do that. We're very open to having you come and very welcoming.
Right. And again, I think it's very useful for folks students getting into this line of work to be able to have some of this, the training for one thing, and then actually working with the system and working with a child in the child welfare system.
You do learn a lot, that's for sure. And so people in school can learn about maybe what they would like to do and maybe what they would not like to do, which is a good thing. And they're going to be part of the team with all these professionals. So the attorneys, the social workers, writing the court report to the judge, so they are called a friend of the court and are the court's representative.
And you talk about that, and so let's talk a little bit about those reports, because those are so useful and helpful. I think we've heard from the judges in these cases. That's who you're writing the reports for, correct?
Yes, and Judge Daly really appreciates the well-written C.A.S.A court reports. And again, if anybody's afraid of writing, you've gathered all the information, and Becky and Kevin and myself can help you to get that into our template. So we do have a template we follow. The report does go to the team, but the judge said, the judge can't visit the child, the judge can't see the child. The judge relies on information given to him at the court hearing. So he's very appreciative of that C.A.S.A court report that kind of paints a picture for him of what's going on in that child's life.
And folks who may be listening or watching us this morning may say, but isn't the child represented in these court cases, and doesn't that child have the guardian ad litem working on their behalf? Why would they need a C.A.S.A volunteer to write these reports as well? But the idea is that these attorneys and other folks maybe have a lot more than just one case to deal with, correct? Isn't that part of the problem, I guess, with the system the way we have it?
Right, and that's the reason the C.A.S.A program was created back in the 70s in Seattle, Washington. So the C.A.S.A volunteer follows one case that could be one child or a sibling group, whereas every guardian ad litem attorney has many cases that they're following. And the professionals work very, very hard, but the C.A.S.A volunteer just has that one case to visit the child.
And they're taking from that perspective, and again, doing all the other visits, almost a 360-degree look at what that child is dealing with. Is that kind of the idea?
Yes. In fact, one of our trainers who has moved to Santa Fe, he used to say, you C.A.S.A volunteers are so lucky because we just get the picture. We look at the painting. You get to look at the statue because you get to talk to everyone. So it's a very good metaphor that he uses.
Very much so. And let me ask our other guests, too, about the same thing. Becky Adams and Kevin Gorman, a little bit about writing these reports and how helpful they are to the folks involved in the case, the judge certainly especially. That's who you're writing it for.
Yes, the C.A.S.A court report gives the details about how the child is doing in the placement that they're in, how the parents are doing on their case plan, allows the judge to, in fact, we even can provide a picture of the child, which helps the judge to put a face to that name that he is seeing so often. Because many times the child doesn't get to come to court. They are allowed to, but sometimes they're too young or it wouldn't be appropriate.
Right. And so, again, that's what the report is kind of trying to show the judge a little bit about the child's life outside the courtroom, at school, at home, all those different things.
Yes, and because of what we've seen, we give specific recommendations concerning the child and concerning their situation, their placement, their future placement, and concerning the treatment case or treatment plan that the parents are going through. We give specific recommendations to the court.
I see. Got you. And Kevin Gorman, let me turn to you for the same type of question about this report that's so helpful to the judge to really show kind of what's going on in this child's life and from the child's perspective. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, when we talk about writing, a lot of people always tend to say, well, I'm not a good writer. I don't like to write. But I think with, the support that, I think Amy and Becky are great writers. And so when everybody writes together, you get all the feedback. It really truly helps. We've always have time to make a court report. If one can't come to the office, we always say you can work on it at home if you need to. And then you can come in at the end and we will, ask if there's any details that we're missing. We have our contact logs that we have our volunteers kind of jot down their visits and their notes, and that actually helps them not to forget any little details about visits. And so it's important so we can show who we're having in contact with, how often are we having contact with them, so we can show that we're actively involved.
Right. And again, the whole idea is to really advocate on behalf of these children who are in the system. And again, Amy O'Neill, all this kind of gets covered in the training, which is why you're all here this morning to talk a little bit about getting signed up for that. So if folks call and say, I'm interested in being a C.A.S.A volunteer, you send them a packet.
Yes.
And then they fill out that packet in advance of this training, which starts again in April. April 7th is the first day, right?
Yes, and then they come in and have what we call a first interview with us, where we get to know them a little better. They get to know us and ask any questions. Then Keba starts the background check, and we get them ready to go. We have a manual from National C.A.S.A that we utilize, and then all the presentations. And we're very lucky to have Riverstone Church that sponsors us to have a good, nice location and a nice training room. We've had lots of sponsors of food because we are starting it a little earlier than we used to. We found we used to have it at 6 and 5:30 was better for people. So a lot of our different restaurants in town have sponsored meals, and we're very thankful for that. So it's a very nice atmosphere. We enjoy the trainers that come, and they give us their volunteer time twice a year to do this. So we're very thankful. So give us a call again, 325-5358, extension 6.
All right, very good. Well, thank all of you for coming in to talk a little bit about the C.A.S.A program. We are going to now bring in our C.A.S.A volunteer and talk more a little bit about what this actually means to him. Joining us now in our visual radio studio to talk about being a C.A.S.A volunteer, Armand Jane is here. And Armand, thank you for being here. Appreciate you coming in.
Hey, thanks for having the team here.
And there is an interesting story about how you got involved with the C.A.S.A program that I would like you to maybe share with our listeners this morning. And because you've only been a C.A.S.A volunteer for the last maybe, 6 months or so?
Yeah, it's been about 5-6 months. I was on my way up to school at Fort Lewis, and I was listening into the show here at KSJE, 8 a.m., and the team, Keba, Amy, and Becky, were all on talking about the C.A.S.A program. And I was interested, so I gave a call right away, and
they signed you up.
Got all set. Yep.
Very good. And so you are going to school at Fort Lewis. You went to school here at San Juan for a few semesters, right?
Yes. So I graduated last year from San Juan with my associates, and then transferred over to Fort Lewis College, where I study sociology and human services.
So that sounds like being a C.A.S.A volunteer fits right into what you are studying.
Right,
and
yeah.
what you want to work in.
So it kind of, that was one of the big factors, was that listening to the description of what, the volunteer, what the role entails, really helped me make that decision of I would like to get some field experience right now, and this was the route to do it.
Right, and so it's been a good fit so far, it sounds like to me.
Oh yeah, I love it. I've really fallen in love with it.
Terrific. And I know we can't talk about the specific case that you're working with, but Is it everything that they told you it would be? I mean, is the hours about the same? And I mean, everything's able to get scheduled into your life as a busy college student and things like that?
You know, you think to yourself, man, I'm busy, how could I fit this stuff in? But when you really care about something, you make time for it. And so what I didn't learn in the training is just how close you get to the case and to the children that you're working with. So we have minimum, required hours that we're supposed to spend doing the work that we do, and usually just naturally you go over that minimum because you find time. So.
And it sounds like you want to find time.
Yeah, a lot of times, it's really interesting because you schedule all of these things. It works around your schedule. So yeah, I'm a full-time student, I go to work, but there's hours, there's many hours during the week where I could spend an hour visiting the school or visiting the home or, contacting a social worker. Sometimes it's just a phone call on the way home. I have an hour drive home, even that phone call works. So anything to make progress for the welfare of a child.
Right. Right. And Becky Adams, let me ask you about Armand's experiences. And as he describes it there, it sounds like maybe it's a similar story to other C.A.S.A volunteers that make the time and get really attached to these children, to these cases.
Yes, it depends on the person's commitment and their real interest in the child's best interest, how the child is doing. Because if you're really interested in that child and advocating for them, you do make the time. And of course, we talk to the person ahead of time and see what type of child they might be interested in, the age, just different things. And we try to fit the C.A.S.A volunteer to the child so that it's a good fit. Sometimes we just need somebody to cover the child, but many times we're able to make a good fit as to what the C.A.S.A volunteer is interested in.
And I guess the C.A.S.A volunteer could say, I'm interested in working with maybe infants, or I'd rather work with kids that maybe can communicate and speak to me, or things like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, and some are more interested in teenagers, and others are like, I don't want a teenager. Right. And also, we try to make sure that the person is comfortable with the case. We allow them to look over the case and say, yes, I will take this and I will do it. Or, well, I'm not really comfortable with this one. There's something about it. Or, well, I know people in the case.
Sure,
and of course, then we say, okay, let's find something else.
Right.
So we make sure that it's a good fit.
Right, and that's important. Again, because you really don't want to go through this multiple times with this child.
Correct.
Of finding them a new C.A.S.A volunteer, perhaps.
Yes, we need that stability again.
Right,
Yes.
right. And Armand, again, it's been going well for you. I mean, only 6 months in or so, but it sounds like you really are enjoying the work and enjoying being this advocate for this child.
Yeah, it's a learning experience. I mean, when you first start out, you go through the training. The big factor is meeting all of the facilitators in the process, so meeting the judges, meeting the social workers, meeting the attorneys, seeing how the process goes, and being included in that team. The correspondence is great between parties, and that really makes it comfortable to work,
Right. What's your sales pitch when you meet other maybe fellow students or other folks in the community about the work that you do? I mean, what do you say to tell them about the experience, maybe get them interested in doing what you're doing?
Right. Well, one thing is we do appreciate having men in the program, and one thing that I pitch to colleagues of mine is, when you're 21 years old, you're eligible to be a C.A.S.A volunteer. So I'm 22. The age isn't so much a restriction, and a lot of people that are studying human services, human resources, that want to just contribute their time to the community, it makes a difference. So if you're studying at San Juan, if you're studying at Fort Lewis, if you're studying somewhere, or even if you're just working and you're like, I could find some time to contribute to my community, it makes a big difference. So
right. I saw Becky Adams nod appreciatively when you mentioned about volunteering as a man, Becky Adams, I imagine you have a lot of boys and younger men, teenage boys that maybe need that role model that a CASA volunteer could also provide in a subsequent way?
Definitely. We do have boys that need that role model for a man in their life, but also some girls. They need that picture of what a solid male figure is. And so it's very beneficial to have men in our program.
Right. Keba Gorman, let me ask you kind of the same question a little bit about the importance of having a diverse squad of volunteers that can help in all these different cases, right? That's important.
Yes, it is. And like, Becky and Armin shared, we do have different ages. So we have some people that want to just run and play with kids, and they want a child that is full of energy. And we have, we look at our volunteers, and we also think like, okay, so, we need somebody who can keep up with this kiddo or sibling group, or, eventually sometimes we do have, we meet up with foster parents if they go to the park after we've, kind of been there for some time. And so that gives us the opportunity just to kind of just have that time to play. But I think overall, culturally, it's nice because we do have a lot of different ethnics when it comes to children, and especially in San Juan County. So to be able to cover everybody's needs and culturally respect them, I think it's great if we compare them.
Right, I would think so. And you can only do that if you have an ethnically diverse band of volunteers.
Yes, and we do have ICWA cases, and so, of course, if we have somebody that is ICWA, we can also assign, and that way, it shows that we are doing our best to assign somebody who's eligible for that position.
Right. Armand Jen, let me turn back to you as being a volunteer, and again, it seems like is this something that you want to stick with, do you think, when your year commitment is up? I mean, I know we're only maybe halfway through it.
I really got to be honest, I don't think when the year comes up I'm going to think about, oh, it's been a year. I haven't thought about it being 6 months. So you just think about doing it. You think about the time that you've been able to spend with the children, and it goes by fast. So, when you make that time and you go out, and especially if my case were to stretch out past a year, I'd definitely renew. Because
you feel you want to stick with it to see the outcome. Yeah,
to see the outcome, because, I mean, it's an investment for the children. You provide, Becky said it, stability. And when you get these kids stability, you get a face that they consistently see that's friendly. I mean, what are they going to want to do? They want to see you. The next time they see you, it starts out like, hey, I'm a CASA worker and all that stuff, but eventually it's like, hello, hello, and it's like you know each other, and so that gives them, with all of these different parties working together in this entire process, they have a person that they could look to who's a volunteer, who's not paid, that's dedicating their time to the welfare of these children.
Right. It sounds like what you're saying is even though you're only maybe with this child a few hours a month, they are looking forward to that visit with you and interaction with you and spending time with you.
Yeah. So we, and a lot of the times too, as a CASA volunteer, you just have to be there for the child and let them be a child. So sometimes it's bringing board games, sometimes it's, shooting hoops. It's not always this serious ordeal. A lot of times it's just sitting down and bringing a snack and, getting down on their level and, really sharing something with them.
Right, right. And Becky Adams, have you heard that before? That's an important part of the visits, is sometimes just doing kid stuff and hanging out and just being together?
Yes, that is definitely, that's where we see how the child is doing. Because the more that they can be themselves, that's what we need to see. And so we need all age groups, we need all, and we need grandmas. Sometimes a child needs to see a grandma figure. And so...
I'm sorry, Armand, that's not you.
Yeah.
Didn't make the cut this time,
okay.
Grandma.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of activities, and if the person's having trouble figuring out what to do with the child, we have lots of stuff at the office, and we have lots of different suggestions to make. So.
Which is great. And again, I think that's an important part of this. And Armand, as a volunteer, do you feel like you've got the support of the CASA staff behind you. If you ever had a question or ran into something that maybe wasn't covered in the training, that you could certainly go to Becky or Amy or Keba and ask them?
Yeah, they're just a phone call away. And if, the call doesn't go through, it's a text, or we set up a time to get together and really go through stuff. And even when it comes to facilitating, items that the child might need, Christmas time, we get a lot of donations for gifts and Toys for Tots, and we have a lot of donors that do a lot of great things for us. So when children's birthdays come around or Christmas, we're able to provide gifts. And so, I have no hesitance when it comes to contacting anybody on the team, Amy, Keba, or Becky, about something that I may need, whether it's knowledge or material to help the child in my case.
Right. Right. And let me ask you a bit about your studies. Again, you're studying this similar type of work at Fort Lewis. And, I recall ages ago when I was in college that there's competition for some of those jobs once you get your degree and things like that. And I would think having this on your resume, or to be able to tell a future potential employer that you've been a CASA volunteer and you've already seen some of these issues and dealt with some of this stuff in this way, it's got to be a good thing to at least kind of help you decide where you're going and to show a future employer perhaps what you've been already doing.
Yeah, when you look at it, I want to get into social work. And you got to imagine getting out of college and going straight into the field. That's an intimidating thing to do, especially with the load that social workers take on. So this allows you to get your foot in the water with one case at a time and really get the experience on how the system works. So when you hit the ground, after you get your degree, you kind of hit the ground running. You already have this idea of what you want to do, and the CASA program solidifies the conviction of, a better welfare for all people.
Right. And fits into what you're studying and what you're learning every day. So
correct.
That's important. Very good. Well, we're just about out of time, everybody, so thank you for coming in and talking about this great program. We've been talking about it for years here at KSJE because we believe so strongly in the work that you all do in our community with our children. And so, again, for more information about becoming a CASA volunteer, the training is coming up in April. And the phone number, if folks would like more information, Becky?
Yes, it's 325-5358, option 6, and we'll get a packet to you.
All right. And again, that training will start on April the 7th, so now would be the time to express some interest and get signed up.
Yes.
Very good. Well, thank you all very much for coming in this morning. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're very welcome. My guest this morning from the CASA Volunteer with Child Haven on KSJE.